This is the narrator talking about a relationship he had when he was younger. People are too various to be treated so lightly. I am too various to be trusted. If this were not so, I would not be alone in this house tonight. I repent now for all the good it does. One particular lie among the many lies I've told, lived, and believed. This is a lie which I told to Giovanni, but never succeeded in making him believe that I had never slept with a boy before. I had decided that I never would again. There is something fantastic in the spectacle I now present to myself of having run so far, so hard, across the ocean even, only to find myself brought up short once more before the bulldog in my own backyard, the yard in the meantime having grown smaller and the bulldog bigger. I have not thought of that boy Joey for many years, but I see him quite clearly tonight. It was several years ago. I was still in my teens. He was a very nice boy, too, very quick and dark and always laughing. And for a while, he was my best friend. Later, the idea that such a person could have been my best friend was proof of some horrifying taint in me, so I forgot him. But I see him very well tonight. We lived in Brooklyn in those days, but in a better neighborhood than Joey's. I think we had been lying around the beach, swimming a little, and watching the near-naked girls pass, whistling at them and laughing. And I am sure that if any of the girls we whistled at that day had shown any signs of responding, the ocean would not have been deep enough to drown out our shame and terror. But the girls, no doubt, had some intimation of this, possibly from the way we whistled, and they ignored us. And as the sun was setting, we started up the boardwalk towards his house with our wet bathing trunks on under our trousers. I think it began in the shower. I know that I felt something as we were horsing around in that small, steamy room, stinging each other with wet towels, which I had not felt before, which mysteriously and yet aimlessly included him.
I always wonder what they think the niggers are doing, while they, the pink and alabaster pragmatists, are containing Russia and defining and redefining and realigning China, nobly restraining themselves, meanwhile, from blowing up that earth which they have already blasphemed into dung. The gentle, wide-eyed, cheerful ladies and their men, nostalgic for the noble cause of Vietnam, nostalgic for noble causes, aching nobly to wade through the blood of savages. The natives will have nothing to complain about. Indeed, they will begin to be grateful, will be better off than ever before. They will learn to defer gratification and save up for things like we do. Oh yes, they will. We have only to make an offer they cannot refuse. This flag has been planted on the moon. It will be interesting to see what steps the moon will take to be revenged for this quite breathtaking presumption. This people masturbate in winding sheets. They have hacked their children to pieces. They have never honored a single treaty made with anyone, anywhere. The walls of their cities are as foul as their children. No wonder their children come at them with knives. O noble Duke Wayne, be careful in them happy hunting grounds. They say the only good Indian is a dead Indian. But what I say is, you can't be too careful, you hear? Oh, towering Ronnie Reagan, wise and resigned lover of redwoods, deeply beloved, winning man-child of the yearning republic, from diaper to football field to Warner Brothers sound stages, be thou our grinning, gently phallic big boy of all the ages. And so I always wonder.
And this is when he said in a speech in 1961, Bobby Kennedy recently made me the soul-stirring promise that one day, 30 years, if I'm lucky, I can be president too. It never entered this boy's mind, I suppose. It has not entered this country's mind yet, that perhaps I wouldn't want to be. And in any case, what really exercises my mind is not this hypothetical day on which some other Negro first will be the first Negro president. What I'm really curious about is just what kind of country he will be president of. So I'm going to read to you an essay from the Cross of Redemption, the Undercollected, an essay he wrote, Why I Stopped Hating Shakespeare. Every writer in the English language, I should imagine, has at some point hated Shakespeare, has turned away from that monstrous achievement with a kind of sick envy. In my most anti-English days, I condemned him as a chauvinist. This England indeed. And because I felt it so bitterly anomalous that a black man should be forced to deal with the English language at all, should be forced to assault the English language in order to be able to speak, I condemned him as one of the authors and architects of my oppression. Again, in the way that some Jews bitterly and mistakenly resent Shylock, I was dubious about Othello. What did he see in Desdemona anyway?
Drum signals. The spirituals as codes for escape from slavery, folk tales or lies, the mask of dialect in capable hands, the black Rimbaud, the black Atlantic, the black electric, the big C, Charlie Parker turning Cherokee into Cocoa as the birth of bebop, Richard Wright forging a note from a white man, thus allowing him to use the segregated public library, James Baldwin's Giovanni's Room and its mask of whiteness, a mask also used in his essay 10,000 Gone, jazz riffs and inversions, Jimi Hendrix's feedback during his Star-Spangled Banner, Lucille Clifton's Two-Headed Woman, artist Jean-Michel Basquiat's alchemical paintings of money that then earned him money, the fugitive slave, the trickster, the root worker, blues people, the bootlegger, the numbers writer, the diva. Some might even say the pimp, the gangster, the addict, and other outlaw identities that violate and transform traditional codes of behavior. All are examples of the storying tradition, of the self-invented and pursued through a profound act of imagination. So too the slave's free pass, often forged to Eve's passage, even passing to escape the bounds of racism and the vagaries of race, and a passing on of these acts of resistance, these lies, that African-American term for folktales, as a collective inheritance. This is not a story to pass on. Perhaps we should refer to this not as the counterfeit tradition, but as a counterfeit inheritance that indicates the manner of its being passed on down. For while it may seem derogatory or even a contradiction in terms, who would really want a false inheritance? I thought of many quotes and heard many quotes when you all were talking and reading. Too various to be trusted was one that came up in Giovanni's Room. I also love the epigraph to that book from Whitman, I am the man, I suffered, I was there. And I remember, in a way, that was my introduction to Whitman, in that way that Whitman was this American I that was so broad. And what I love about Baldwin is the way in his essays he was able to be various. He was able to have that I that was super various. And we heard that tonight, hearing his poetry, his fiction, his nonfiction. And I wonder about that variety and how it works. I think it works wonderfully, but do people sometimes not be able to take him in because of all this variety? Or how do we understand his variety and the importance, say, of his poetry, which I thought you expressed so wonderfully as central to his returning to his voice? But, is this voice, what is this variety, what does it say to us?
One of the things that I love, there's so many things about Baldwin I love, but I love that he was not waiting for permission to be only this writer or only that writer. Yeah. That I feel like his heart and his soul and his spirit was full of words and feeling. He's following his heart. And I think for me, the courage to do that and to keep doing it was a North Star for me as a writer in a society that often says, choose.
Yeah.
You can't be two things, be one thing. You can't do three things well. I mean, I can even hear parents and people in my family saying that kind of, come on, just make a decision.
Right.
And he never did that, and I'm so grateful that he never did.
That's pretty good. I don't know how to follow that. But do you have any thoughts, Amy?
I guess part of the thoughts for me is about his statements about being various. You know, that in his writing, he claimed, in addition to the jazz and the Shakespeare, Henry James and Dostoevsky and George Bernard Shaw, and if he was not so various, I would not get to be here. You know, it is Baldwin that gives me permission